Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
We Unplugged, here we go. Rudy and the crew exclusive interview. Welcome to the show. Let's have some fun. We Unplugged starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Sweep Unplugged. Rudy Campos Jr. coming to you live again from the Sweep Unplugged studios. Appreciate everybody that joins us. Hey, go to our YouTube page and search Sweep the League TV. Be a subscriber. Get your notifications up. We got a lot more Sweep Unplugged. You may see my lights flicker a little bit today. Kind of crazy. We got a little bit of electrical work being done today. So don't be scared. There's no ghosts. There's nothing like that. Nothing at all. But again, Sweep Unplugged. Definitely want to go to Sweep the League on YouTube or Sweep the League TV. Hit that subscribe button as we got a whole lot of Sweep Unplugged going for this year, 2025, amongst other things going. Now, what are we talking about today? Normally, we come to you guys from Sweep Unplugged, from Sweep League TV. We talk NBA, we talk all sports. We get you updated on breaking news, everything like that. But today, we're actually going on, can you say, a life perspective? And it's not like the fitness that we talk about. It's not about, the mental health and everything. It's actually giving you what's called a peace of mind when it comes to your assets, when it comes to, hey, if you're a millionaire and you're a celebrity, like some of the celebrities that we talk to, some of the athletes, are you protected? Is your family protected? This is going to be a great subject for you guys out there, especially those of you that are like me, that don't have an idea behind a lot of this stuff when it comes to trust, when it comes to living wills. I mean, there's so much that I didn't know about, and I'm glad we're going to have our guest on today, who's going to be Mr. Oscar Vasquez. Let me get him on here because I've got a lot of questions, like I know a lot of you have a lot of questions as well. Let's bring him on here. Mr. Vasquez, how are you doing? And welcome to Sweep Unplugged, sir.
Yeah, well, great. Thanks for having me. Excited to bring you guys a ton of value and information to be able to get your listeners on track for a winning life.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is the thing where I think a lot of people never realize, especially when you're young, you're growing up, as athletes, sometimes you're making a lot of money and you figure, what's the best thing? I mean, nothing can happen to me. I can afford this, I can afford that, but they never plan for the future. They never plan for that what if scenario. Before we dive into a lot of this topic here, go to estate.prep.com/checkout page, checkout-page. That's his website. When you check out there, use that promo code SWEEP. And what's going to happen is you're going to get how much off, sir?
You're going to get $1,000 off for people that take action. There's a limited amount of people that we can do that for. So if you take action, I think there's the first 10 people, you'll be able to get $1,000 off and to be able to protect your assets for the rest of your life and for the rest of your legacy because we create a comprehensive living trust for you.
There you go. So remember, we're going to put that website on the show. We're going to put it on all of our posts today when the show comes out. estate.prep.com. Go /checkout-page. Use that promo code SWEEPS. You get $1,000 off the help. Now, what kind of help are you getting today? We're talking about estates. We're talking about living wills and trust, something that I didn't even understand when I first was going over some stuff, Mr. Vasquez, was this: the difference between a will and a living trust. To me, when I think of will, I'm thinking, okay, that when you pass away, this will is kind of going to be dispersing money and, it takes care of everything. But I always figured a living trust was similar to that and basically the same thing. I thought if I had a will, it kind of took care of everything. I'm basically wrong on this. Can you kind of go between a will and a living trust?
Yeah, let me give you absolutely. But I'm gonna take one step back and I want to give you a layman's term definition of what a living trust is.
Okay.
Because if If you understand what a living trust is, it'll help me give you an understanding of what a will does and what it is. A living trust is a contract between you, the grantor, and your beneficiaries, which are your kids usually.
Okay.
And it is enforced by the courts. So it's a contract that's basically a contract saying this is what I want to have happen, and this is how I want it to get distributed. And that means anything of value, that an asset is anything of value to you, and that could be emotional value, economic value, any memorabilia, any kind of value that you have, you can distribute it in any way that you want. Now, a will is a demand, and basically, and how I can explain a will is the instructions that you give the court on what you wish to have happen. Because a will does not prevent you from going to probate. That means probate is where the government decides, or the courts decides, what happens to your assets. I'll give you an example. If you have a collection of memorabilia, if you have a retirement account, if you have a home, and you do not have a living trust, then you have to pay to go to court, or your beneficiaries will pay to go to court, and you go to probate. And that usually, on average, is about $26,000 on average, all the way up. I've seen it all the way up on court and attorney costs, all the way up. The highest I've seen it is $180,000 that you get paid. So the biggest difference between a will and a living trust is that a living trust prevents you or your beneficiaries from having to take the assets, that you take portion of the asset and pay the court. So a living will makes you go, doesn't prevent you from going to probate, but a living trust does. And because of that, a living trust can be more in depth on exactly what you want. For example, let's just say, Rudy, you have a person that says, "Hey, I have a rental property, and if you sell this property, I want you to save $100,000 for the beneficiary, for my grandkids. Right? I want my kids to be able to go to school, or to be able to have that, break the chain of the legacy of being able to have that opportunity." Like, how many kids in this world have great talent, but they didn't get a scholarship because of the academics, or they didn't do it because of that. Now, that if you have a trust, you can have that opportunity to be able to change that legacy for your kids. So in essence, having a living trust, in summary, the difference between a living trust and a will is, a will does not prevent you from going to probate or going to court. A living trust does, in essence. And that's the first biggest difference. The second difference is that a living trust is more of a demand document of, this is what I want to have happen, and a will is, this is what I wish to have happen. Wow, right?
Wow.
That's just, yes. I mean, it's amazing that and most people think, well, I just want a will. Look, if you just have everybody, now here's the thing, here's the biggest misconception, Rudy, that most people think that you have to be wealthy. Listen, if you own a home, you need a living trust. You need a revocable living trust. That means you have to have it, or your heirs or your beneficiaries are going to go to probate. And then, well, here's let me give you a war story that we just went through this with one of our clients. We're going to call her Rosa. She had 5 kids, and She was a single mother, 5 kids, got into a car accident about 3 months ago, and she did not have a living trust. So the family came to us. The family came to us because our main profession is financial services and real estate. They came to us, say, hey, we need help with the house, and the house was not in the living trust. They went to an attorney. They got a living trust done by an attorney, and
Mhm.
they did not put the house in the living trust. So that means the house was not protected.
Oh
And they're
wow.
like, why can't we get the bank is now calling the no due? They had all this come in. They have to go to probate. The attorney in California is charging them $54,000. They say, and here's what they said, Rudy, it's okay. You don't have to give us the 54,000. When you sell the house, you can pay us. They're like, wait, we don't want to sell the house.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to sell the house because I need to get paid, right? That
Hmm.
was that was the first thing. The second thing, the in California, it takes anywhere if there's no disagreement on what portions get in the house, it will take it's going to take the family anywhere from 12 to 24 months to see the money after they sell the house to settle the estate. If they would have funded the living trust. Now this is one of the biggest differences of having a living trust
Hmm.
and having an active living trust is by being able to have it funded and protected, because it's like having insurance but no insurance, right?
Yeah.
But that it's not even covered. So what a tragic story. And there's probably hundreds and hundreds of people out there. Most of the people that act fast on a living trust are the people that know somebody that their estate was in limbo for 12 to 18 months, or they almost lost the house and they almost got nothing from
Yeah.
it because the court and the attorney took most of the equity. But what an amazing document that I think everybody should have, especially if you're a homeowner, right? That is like a
Yeah.
must, because that's an asset that you want your kids and your beneficiaries to benefit from.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because the way you put it and the way you explained it was perfect. It made me think, because to be honest, I mean, we're full honest on the shows that we do, and personally, me, my wife, and I have always talked. Okay, we need to get everything in order for us. I mean, we're both 45, years old, and I mean that's not super old, but I mean it's still old enough to where we got everything and we got a house. And she's like, "Well, we got to do the will. We got to do a will. We got to." Well, now it's going to be like we need to do actually probably a living trust more than anything, because our daughter needs to be able to have everything protected. And you mentioned something about memorabilia, and what's crazy is in the sports world, you've seen the boom of memorabilia, sports cards. I mean, you can go from 2019 before COVID, pre-COVID, sports cards were, pretty high, pretty decent, very affordable, to now, fast track 4 years, 5 years later. I mean, sports cards are selling for thousands and thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
And you go to a sports card show with memorabilia and stuff, you see guys with, buku cards of, certain players worth, that whole table is probably sitting at around 40, 50,000. Is that something that a living trust can protect for those people? Because I mean, essentially, if you don't have it in line, somebody can come in and say, "Hey, those were promised to me," and then you have to go to court. You have to prove this. I
Yep.
mean, to be honest, in today's technical world, Oscar, you can manufacture all types of documents. You can do all
Yes.
this stuff to fool people. So, in something like that, as minute as sports collectibles, it has to be treated just like a house, I'm sure.
Oh, it's you know what? It's funny. I'm just north of Los Angeles, so we get a lot of very affluent people. And the last client that we helped, probably about 2-3 weeks ago, he had he had almost $40,000 in fragrances, just fragrances,
Oh wow.
bro, just colognes, right? That he had invested. He had over in cards for his, and one of the things that he was saying is that, you know what, the cards are not to be in the living trust. He put I think one of them was a signed shirt, one of them was like some Kobe memorabilia, and he was a really diehard Laker fan,
Oh
and
wow.
he has he's, I mean, he's a ticket holder, so he had a lot of memorabilia, and he's like, I don't want this to be sold, and it was an instruction that this was not to be sold. It's to be held in a museum until the value is X, right? And
Wow.
then when it becomes X, then it can be auctioned off, and then those proceeds are going to go to my beneficiaries, but a portion of that needs to be held in a sub trust in order for them to go to school. And if they don't go to school, they get a small amount, which is, I think he put like $50,000 when they turn 35, right?
Yeah.
And then the rest goes to their kids for their education. So he did that where it went down to seven layers. He wants to go down 7 layers. And I said, let me ask you a question. Why is that? And he goes, you know what? I want my grandkids to know my name. And the only way they're going to know my name is that I'm going to put a scholarship in my name that they're going to be able to go to school. If they don't want to go to school and do anything with themselves, then that $50,000 seed money at that time will be able to allow them to be able to start a business, right?
Yeah.
And so it was that to me that gave me an aha moment and said, wow, a living trust can actually live on. And then he even put into a bank where he said it was called the waterfall method, where he got a life insurance policy for his kids. So the money in the living trust would generate money for when the kids got older, they had money to go to school, even if all of his things, he goes, if something were to go wrong with all of my collectibles, because he has cars. It was amazing. All of these assets. And then people say, like, what do you put in the living trust? And it's simple. Anything that has emotional or economic value to you, everything. So that's one thing. Now, and as you said, kids, I'm going to tell you, the second person, the people that have a living trust, the second people that take really bad action is when they know somebody that passed when they had young kids, because the kids goes into social services if you don't have a guardianship awarded. And in your living trust, you pick guardianship, says, hey, I want Uncle Rudy to be able to take care of Johnny and Jill for temporary until a family member comes forward, or until the permanent guardianship goes through, right? If not, imagine, you as a family, a mom and dad, you're out to dinner, date night, and a tragedy happens. What happens to the kids? Well, that night they go to social services. That's a trauma that's going to be incurred for lack of planning. If you have a living trust and you have your guardianships and you have that already appointed, the kids don't go to social services. They say, you know what? I am the executor. I am the trust. They're incapacitated, and I'm going to take charge of them. Now, social services will allow a family member to stay with them temporarily, but a lot of them, like in California, they take possession of the children first for a day or two. It's like, I've never been, but if you go, it's like if you ask somebody that's never been to jail, hey, how was your day in jail? They're like, dude, that's the worst day of my life. Imagine a child staying in a house that's a stranger. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But a living trust can prevent that, because one of the tools that you get with the living trust in a comprehensive living trust is guardianship. Is what happens to your children if this happens. And we always tell people we always recommend and say, look, dig deep. We can put one, but we always recommend you go 3 deep. We always recommend you go 3 deep. In other words, you pick number 1, number 2, and number 3. If this person is not available or capacitated, or they go down a wrong path, right? They go down and their life changes. They're no longer the spiritual person that you grew up with, right? And they change. Then you want them to be able to have other alternatives if that person chooses not to, or the kids are just not healthy enough to stay there mentally, right?
Yeah, man, it's a deep dive, and it's something that I think, personally, gives me a lot more to look into. And the way I'm going to do that definitely is a state doc prep. You can get a contact with Mr. Oscar Vasquez and you can talk to him, and he'll give you all the advice you need, like advice we're getting right now. But it truly does open my eyes, because it's like I said before, it seems like my wife and I thought it was so easy to just, we just need a will. My mom and dad always taught us, you have to have a will, but it's a lot more complicated than just a will, because, like you mentioned, a will kind of is an umbrella, but where the living trust is, it's the little parts of the umbrella inside that create the umbrella. And it's, more specific. It's more, it's a demand, like, hey, this is what it is. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. To where a will is kind of like, well, here's everything I own. Here you go, honey. Here you go, daughter, son. This is yours. But the biggest thing is one word. It's protection. There's no protection in a will, is what it is.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I always call the will, and they say, like, what would be, if I could describe a will in a couple words, it would be, I love you, right? I love you. Here's everything I own.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And there's no repercussion, and then there's always in there. So, but before one, I want to give some great nuggets on here's the things that you should consider. One, if you have, everybody has an estate. Okay, everybody has an estate. Who should have a living trust and has to have it, or you go to probate. Because one, it's like this. If you own a home, you should have a living trust. Now, 10 years ago, a living trust, attorneys were doing living trust for a cost of $600 to $1,200. Today, an attorney charges for a living trust anywhere from $3,000 for a basic one home living basic trust, no additional comprehensive, and it goes all the way up to $10,000. So I say, even though you're young and you're not going to die today, the document lives with you forever. Gotcha. So it overviews you. So the only difference is, when do you want to pay less for a living trust now or more later? But everybody needs one if you're a homeowner. If you're not a homeowner and you have young children, you need to at least have a guardianship. You can just get a guardianship agreement or something like that. But more than anything else, if you're a homeowner, a living trust is something that should be done almost immediately to protect you at the lowest possible cost.
Yeah, and that's something that we've all got to look into, because a lot of us are homeowners, and you take for granted the fact that, well, I have a document that says it's a will, it protects my home, it protects my family, it protects everything. You're right, it protects you up to a point. Is that what it is? Is that there's always that roadblock at the end. And I know a couple of people that have gone through probate, and it's so crazy to hear some of the stories, because they've been in probate for years. I mean, it can go on years and years and years. And, it's like, well, we're at the end point, and then somebody else, whether it be a company, whether it be a long lost relative, somebody just walks in and says, hey, I was promised this. Guess what? It starts all over again for probate, because there's so many. It's weird how and this is the way I look at it too. It's kind of funny because I hate to put this on guys and everybody, but you could have that girlfriend from 1920 come back and
It
say,
happened.
you know what? This guy promised me this,
Yeah.
and you're passed away, so you're not worried about it. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes so much sense to actually go with the living trust because in probate, everybody in the shadows can come out.
I'll give you a thing. I had about 2 years ago Mr. Becerra passed away, and he had a previous family. He did not have a living trust. He had
Yeah.
He has 4 kids. He has currently 4 kids with Mrs. Becerra, but on his previous marriage, he had 6 kids. And he totally like left Texas, came to the West Coast, and remarried and kind of left it, right? Just left it at divorced, remarried, created a whole entire life. And then they went to probate. When he died, all 4 of the kids showed up and said, that was my dad. We at probate came in. So the court decided to split the $1 million by 8 kids. It was $1 million that he left in real estate, minus that. I think it came out to by time the probate fees and by time everything got separated and it went on, they just finished. It took them 2 years to settle the estate, but I think it was something like a fraction of what the kids wanted. They're like, this is just crazy. I said, that's exactly why we need a living trust. And it's funny that you say that because those kids came out of the woodwork, right? And said, hey, that was my dad, and we deserve a percentage. Here's pictures of him, and here's, my mother was married to him, and she always said that when he passed, he was going to have money, and we should come and collect, because we're his kids. And he didn't have a living trust. Yeah. If he would have had a living trust and excluded that family because it was no longer his family because they didn't connect anymore, a living trust could have prevented that. And now his beneficiaries, the true intention of building that small wealth, the sacrifices, all the things that we do. I mean, look, we enjoy our articles, but we also say, hey, this could be a value someday that somebody could benefit from. It's kind of like investing, like you were talking about the cards. So that's just. It's funny that you say that because that's the first story that came. Somebody could come out from the woodwork and make that happen. But yeah, Rudy, that's definitely something that people should really take into consideration and don't procrastinate with this. Make this something. A living trust. Everybody, if you're a homeowner, you have to have it. If you're a single parent, you at the very least you should have a living trust for your there. If here's another thing that we a living trust that helps you that a will doesn't, which is a power of attorney if you become incapacitated, which nobody likes to talk about. Yeah. Right. But imagine if you and your wife don't have joint accounts, and you have a separate account, as if that happened, if that were the case, you become incapacitated, she will not have access to that money if she does not have a power of attorney or the trustee. If she's a co-trustee in the living trust, then she has access to the money. If not, your account's freeze until you become capacitated or dead. Then people say like, on my 401k, my kids are the beneficiaries. Yes. But if you could become incapacitated, you can have access to that money if you have only a power of attorney in the living trust. But if you don't, you won't have access to it, and you can't get your bills paid. They can't live, they can't buy food, and if you're the sole provider, what happens? Yeah, and those are just some of the vehicles, and I wish we had more time to go into more stories, but this is something that we're very passionate about. We're very passionate about because we've seen so many people go and suffer because there's not enough awareness of estate planning and protecting your assets, protecting your home, and more importantly than anything else, protecting your kids.
Yeah.
protecting the future of them. Because imagine you save all this money, and then the court comes in and says, or an attorney comes in and says, "Hey, it's only 50,000. Don't worry about it. You can just pay me when you sell the house." Like, where's the kids gonna go? Right? I mean, that was the whole purpose.
Oh man, attorneys can be attorney at any time of the day, and they'll make you feel good up until it's time to collect that payment. So
Yeah.
I totally understand that, man. Oscar, it was a great sweep unplugged, man. You opened up my eyes, and I'm glad we had this conversation. Another great conversation to start 2025. And estate.prep.com/checkout-page. We're going to post that on our social media. We're going to post that everywhere. Why? Because if you use promo code SWEEP, you're going to get $1,000 off a discount. You can start working on that living trust, because why? You've got to be protected just like everybody else, and your family needs to be protected. You got to make sure that your assets are protected, that you do not get that ex-girlfriend from 40 years ago coming up and saying, "Hey, I am entitled to a piece of this." You don't want that to happen. You want to make sure you contact Oscar Vasquez today. All you got to do is go to estate.prep.com, get in contact with him there. He's going to help you get through the entire process. It's a smooth, easy process. As a matter of fact, I'm calling my wife here as soon as we're done, because I got to talk to her about this. This opened up my eyes a whole lot. I don't have anybody else to give my assets to. It's just to my wife and my daughter, but I want to make sure, and I want to give her peace of mind that it's all going to go to her. So there's nobody coming out of the woodworks, man. But Oscar, if you want to give everybody any more last minute information, where they can contact you or anything, sir.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I'm gonna give you a Reader's Digest version of the process. When you sign up, what we do is we are estate coordinators. So one of the things that we do is we walk you through the entire process. Instead of being like attorneys and saying, "Hey, it's $10,000 to pay it," and it's 45 days, we can do it in as little as 4 to 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a consultation. You can call me. You can call our office at 805-909-4689. We walk you through the entire process, and then we help you fund it. We help you fund it properly. So when your document gets completed and your contract, I call it a ceremony, because what's going to happen is you're going to feel like an 800-pound gorilla just got off your back, and you're going to feel very, very good that you did this for your family. Even if you're a young family, you should really take this into consideration. And once again, Rudy, thank you guys. Thank you to Sweep the League for allowing me to bring this to your audience and letting them know and having this awareness to protect their assets and, most importantly, their family. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Oscar. And you know what? It was a great conversation, because again, this is stuff you take for granted. Nobody likes to talk about passing away. Nobody likes to talk about, like you said, about being incapacitated. But you know what? It's life. It's going to happen at one point or another. It's going to happen. You got to protect yourself now while you're still breathing, because once you're gone, there's nobody left to protect your family. Get in contact with Oscar Vasquez. Again, estate.prep.com. That phone number is 805-909-4689. Contact them today to get your life settled. That's Oscar Vasquez. Appreciate you joining us. And again, for everybody, be sure to go to our YouTube page, search Sweep the League TV, be a subscriber. We're coming a lot more Sweep Unplugged. We got another 4 or 5 episodes coming next week. We got a lot of great stuff coming for Sweep the League. So for Oscar Vasquez, this is Rudy Campos Jr. for Sweep Unplugged. Until we talk to you again next time, we'll see you later, knuckleheads.